What's up, bro? It's your boy, Mike Muse. Welcome to the Conversation, the Mike Muse Show. I'm so excited to be in conversation with you today. And I am so excited to be in conversation with my next guest. I have been a fan and someone who's been intrigued. As you all know, audience, I always talk about the journey. For me, life isn't about the destination as it is the journey. I believe the destination is always evolving. And you never know where your life is going to take you. You never know what your North Star is, and you never know why you're going through something, and what is to come, and the goodness that is to come, and the silver linings. And this gentleman has had an incredible evolution that we have been able to witness right before our eyes, and to see where he is right now is just absolutely amazing. And the person I am talking about is the MC, the honorable, the politician, the Honorable Shyne. How are you, good sir?
Thank you so much. I'm blessed and I'm happy to be here.
When you walked in, audience, I immediately just complimented him on his skin. His skin just looks so great, but I think as I'm looking more, it's just your aura and your energy. You seem to be so grounded, and you seem to have so much peace. I wasn't expecting that.
Well, I think the benefit of war is peace.
Mm-hmm.
You know, unfortunately, that is the mechanism of life, that we have this balance.
Mm-hmm.
Just the way the universe was created. And I learned a long time ago to stop struggling with the why and just understanding what is and doing my best to manage what is. And what I've discovered is after hell, there's heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So whatever aura, whatever peace I've been able to achieve came from great struggle, came from, a very defeating battles and wars that I was able to ultimately be the victor in.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
And the reason that's beautiful.
Yeah.
And I'm going to lean more into that, but I want to give context of my statement that I made.
Yeah.
I said I wasn't expecting that. Normally, when guests come in, you can feel the energy. You feel the energy of their team. You can feel the energy, and I normally absorb the energy of my guests. That's why I'm very intentional about how I create my room, how I set my room, the intentionality of the room.
Yeah.
I'm very intentional with the music that is being played in the room. But there was a moment when you walked in, there was such a calmness about you that you also settled my spirit.
Amen.
And I was dealing with a call right prior to this, a very challenging call.
Yeah.
And the music.
Me too, by the way.
Right?
Yeah, I literally.
It was a challenging call.
Me too.
Yeah, and then the music that we were playing, I didn't feel was right for the energy that you had. And if you saw me, I'd say cut the music.
Yeah.
I just didn't feel that it was right because you were so
settled. That was the wartime music.
Yeah.
That was at a time of war. And I think, part of why the documentary is so timely is because on the planet, we're dealing with so many different wars. You guys have your own civil war here in the United States as far as the political divisions. You have war in Ukraine, you have war in Gaza and Israel. There's just so much division in the planet, but fortunately, that's just the way the planet was created. And there's going to be a constant fight for right and wrong, for the soul of humanity, if you will. And that's just a part of it. But when you come out on the other side of that war, then, the energy that you transmit, reflects the victor of that war.
For context, for people who may not be familiar with Shyne, ladies and gentlemen, this is Shyne. Some may be familiar with him as a rapper. Award-winning rapper.
A few nominations.
Who brought us incredible music, incredible sound.
40 million records sold.
Yeah. Went through a trial with Diddy. We'll talk about that in a second, but now has come out on the other side. And now,
opposition leader of the House of Representatives.
I was just going there. Yeah. I was about to say now is opposition leader at Belize and is primed to become the next prime minister
from your lips to God's ears
of Belize. And so this is who we're talking about. So now I want to get back into this conversation. I wanted to bring that quick context in. So I wanted to keep in the direction that we were going in, but some people may not be familiar with the story.
Yeah.
You use the word war a lot, and I think that's very interesting. So when you hear that music and you said it's wartime music, how do you perceive that music now? Like, how do you think about that time period to where you are in this present state of mind and spirit?
You know, I responded to the word that you used was peace.
Mm-hmm.
And I think when people think of life, they always think of life in these extremes.
Mm-hmm.
They always neglect to understand that completion is balance.
Mm-hmm.
That's the ultimate perfection. And what happens as human beings, you know, we only want one part of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we never, most of us, never get to a point where we understand that all of it is what makes the part of it that you want more gratifying and satisfying. You know, so for me, when I listen, I don't really listen to my own music. Yeah, it's not. I don't know. You know, rarely do I ever. Maybe, you know, every few years, maybe I might get nostalgic and, you know, just reminisce, because I'm a storyteller.
Mm-hmm.
I am a scribe.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the House of Representatives. When I go to the House of Representatives, I'm the voice of the people of Mesopotamia that elected me, and I'm the voice of the other 30 constituencies that I represent as leader of my political organization. So if the people are upset, if the people are hurt, if the people are angry, if the people are satisfied, whatever their emotions, as a member of the House of Representatives, I have to project their voices in the House. In Belize, we call it the People's House. My music is so similar in the sense of I was a voice of the voiceless. I was merely transcribing for the world, whoever would consume my music, how urban youth were feeling at the time, how, you know, single parent households existed. I was merely projecting the construct of inner city life. So I one of the most famous sayings I have is hip hop is not responsible for violence in America. America is responsible for violence in America. And that really sums up everything. And that's why I have no difficulty listening to my old music. It's not my soundtrack because I'm not there anymore. I'm not 19-year-old or 18-year-old Shyne. But 18-year-old, 19-year-old Shyne was not Quentin Tarantino. I wasn't making art of gore, and I wasn't, fantasizing, having these wicked fantasies about death and destruction. I was merely transcribing the reality of death and destruction. And when you listen to that poetry, it really is that. It's a dissertation of what was happening around me, and much of it is a wailing, is a crying for better, and wanting to escape that reality. So when I listen to that, I treat it as a work of art, a timeless piece of art, and it takes me back there, and it inspires me as to where I'm at now, where there's a young Shyne there, whether a female or a male, there's a young Shyne all over the world, somewhere, having that same conversation, asking to be saved. And especially there are young Shynes in Belize, where I, as opposition leader, as an area representative, I have the power to give them solutions. I have the power to answer their cries with the policies that I advocate for and that I will implement. So it all goes hand in hand. So it's not like I listen to that and I'm like, oh, I can't listen to that. No, I'm not that. I'm me. And so I'm insulated, yet so connected. Yeah.
That's beautiful, because I've always had this belief that hip hop is our New York Times. It's ABC News, right? It has always been how messaging has gotten out from the community
Yeah.
It's always been that messenger of that.
Indeed.
NWA for me has been one of the three muses of my works. NWA for the song "Fuck the Police," really looking at police violence. Billie Holiday for "Strange Fruit," really looking at the first protest songs. And NFL, which is sports. I think sports has a way of bringing different subsects of society together underneath one dynamic. But for me, music and hip hop specifically has been the storyteller. So it's so perfect that you are still the storyteller, but on the other side, that can have impact on legislation and policy.
Absolutely.
Because to pick up to where you just said about it's reflective of the violence of America. Hip hop isn't violent as necessarily as America is violent. And every time there is a shooting that I get called in to discuss at ABC of two or one rapper that has either been shot or did the shooting, I always say, how come we're not talking about gun reform when it comes to the urban community and to the hip hop community? When children get shot and mass shootings happen in the suburbs, we give prayers and then we say we need gun reform. But when it happens in the hood or when it happens in the hip hop, it's not about gun reform. It's not about gun legislation,
Absolutely.
right? It's about there they go again.
Yeah, in my second album, Godfather Buried Alive, I think I have a song with Bob Marley. Obviously, he passed away, but I got the Marley estate to let me use his vocals for, he did a song called No More Trouble. Mm-hmm. And I used that sample. And in that song, I say, black people don't own no ports or boats. So tell me where we getting all this coke.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
That's it. And
yeah, I mean, listen, allegedly the CIA, is one of the biggest traffickers of narcotics, and the United States is the biggest consumer of narcotics. I'm just saying. So the actors on a micro level who happen to be the drug dealers we see in the urban communities, they're not the problem. The problem goes all the way to Oliver North and the Oval Office and Iran Contra and all these different things that happen in the dark market. So that's why I'm able to appreciate it all. Mm-hmm. And while there's certain music, certain art that I won't consume because I don't want to be in that state of mind. So I'm very deliberate and intentional about what I do consume. Yeah. And so I don't listen to my music because I'm not there. But, there are moments where I could reach back and appreciate it as a work of art. Mm-hmm. And as a form of inspiration as to where I was, where I am, and where I want to be. I do get where you are, where you're saying, that music just doesn't, it's not the energy. I get that because there's music I don't listen to any type of music. I listen to like old reggae songs, Bob Marley, Freddie McGregor, Gregory Isaacs, and Belize and Paranda music, Paul Nabor. I'm very specific. If I do listen to be something like Otis Redding or Ray Charles, Georgia, I curate the theme to my life. So I get you. But I do understand that.
Otis Redding, the first song I ever played on my saxophone I learned to play was Sitting on the Dock of the Bay. Yeah, Otis Redding has a really special place with me. And I think sometimes
I've Been Loving You is my favorite.
I love that one. Yeah. And I think there's something about this narrative. I hear people who have experienced trauma, been through trials and tribulations, in particular they are having in their art form. They can look back. And for me, what I was getting out of you say, sometimes you would check into your music from time to time is like reminding yourself and to protect that inner shine, right? And how many that inner child, right? And how many, because you were a child at the time, right? When you're 17, 16, 18, 19, you're still a child, right? Yeah. I know legally you're an adult at 18, but you're still a child, right? I think it's something about protecting that inner child in the place that you're in a position now as an elected official to course correct some of the things you just mentioned about, because really, I love where you went there. There's this war on drugs, right? And this idea of the war on drugs was always impacting Black and brown communities, in particular Black communities, right? But I've always been curious at why we never go after like the higher network of cartels that funnel the drugs into. We're having this conversation right now with the United States, with the south of the border, and examining immigration, but it really is, that is how opioids are actually coming into the United States, not just from the south,
how do you think
but also from China too as well. In terms of
how do you think the cartels exist? How do you think they get the product to the biggest consumer on planet Earth, right? So it's like, you're so right. You know, we're looking at the scapegoats.
We are.
And so they don't really want to solve the problem.
And it's always to look at the scapegoats and keeping in the vein of hip hop, and recently and this idea of like RICO charges within hip hop, looking at the Young Thug case. I'm not here to make it, and I don't want you to chime in on it, but this idea that I've seen so many RICO cases around hip hop, but it never really addresses the core fundamentals, because we can't look through the biases that's associated with it. Of what the music is, and people can't look at the music as it's a storytelling, right, of what's happening and impacting in the neighborhoods. There's something I find really interesting about and really symbiotic relationship between the work that you're doing as elected official in Belize, you know, also to protecting those who don't have the resources or the ability to speak out on behalf of themselves. And I kept thinking about you as that young Shyne, that 19-year-old Shyne that was sitting in prison for and didn't have that ability to use a voice, going against this giant and not knowing how to get out. Can you talk to us about that Shyne, right? Like that period of helplessness and feeling like scapegoat.
Well, you know, I was the scapegoat, and you know, helpless. I'm not sure if that's the term I'd describe. It's just nothing I could do. So maybe, in essence, it rendered me unable to do anything. But I did help myself. You know, I refused to accept being helpless. I refused to accept the evils that were inflicted on me, and I navigated that terrain, and I got myself out of that. So it was, and that's where we go to war. So that was a war. That was a battle. You know, I could have given up. I could have accepted being helpless. I could have said, "Man, there's nothing I could do." You know, Diddy or whoever is, you know, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and this is a corporation. This is a global icon, and you know, his voice, his celebrity is so loud. But if you look at, you know, when I was incarcerated, I became bigger than I was before. I'm only Tupac put out a #1 album while he was incarcerated. Only musician. Not that, you know, heaven forbid, I don't want any musician to be incarcerated. It's not something that I would. It is not something that I would want people to compete for, to be putting out #1 albums while incarcerated. But it's just an example to underpin the magnitude by which, you know, my impact grew in the music business. So that's not helpless. You know, that's resilience. And that's what the documentary, The Honorable Shyne, is all about. Invoking the resilience within all of us. We all have that. And we will all be faced with those moments, such as I was faced with, where we can accept being helpless, or we can reject it, and we can find that resilience and push through and help ourselves and transform the negatives and make it into what we want it to be. And that's exactly what happened with me. You know, as I said, I left Bad Boy. I refused to have anything to do with Diddy, because obviously he called people to testify against me, and he was responsible for me going to prison. And I stood on business. I refused to have anything to do with him. I remember he came to see me in Rikers Island, and I think there was a bar that separated us, and I think I spit at the bar. Couldn't get at him, but that's just how I felt. And I walked out. There's nothing for us to talk about. And I went on and did a deal with Def Jam, put out a #1 album, and I did my time. But there came a point where part of helping myself was forgiveness. Part of helping myself was cutting the shackles of yesterday that bound me. And as much as I would want to aviate, as much as I would want to soar, I couldn't do that, by holding on to these very justifiable grievances. But I got to a point where helping myself was letting go of the people that didn't help me and that hurt me, instead of holding on to that. Taking that with you is so burdensome. And then if I want to help the people in Belize, I can't keep holding on to all these baggage, because I need space. I need more strength. So again, I talked about all the negatives and all the destruction and devastation that an individual caused me, but then being able to forgive that person and being able to exist without that person. Because even though I existed without him, holding on to it gave him so much value and so much power and presence in my life. It's like, you get to a point where, like, what are you doing? Let go. And so even now, obviously I can't come in here and say, hey, I'm not going to talk about Diddy. I don't want to, but I talk about it in a place of healing and forgiveness.
And lessons.
And lessons to help other human beings and share my story with them so that they can heal.
Because forgiveness isn't about, I feel the act of forgiveness is about the person and not about who they are forgiving.
Absolutely.
Right? But it's about you doing it for yourself.
Absolutely.
To let go, and as you said, to grow and to elevate so that you can help.
Absolutely.
Did he come at that time to the jail to apologize to you when he came to visit you in prison?
Yeah, I believe it was in a state of contrition, but it's like, it's too late. I'm already incarcerated. You can't help me now. I think I was on a show yesterday, and so the host is like, but Diddy said he's your brother. I was like, man, I wish he was my brother when we were on trial. I wish he was his brother's keeper at that time. But as I said, now we share the story from a point of healing, from a point of lessons learned.
I want to ask you, because this is idea of forgiveness. I want to kind of stick here for a second. There's idea of forgiveness. It depends upon which religion you subscribe to, and how you interpret the religion and the dogma aspect of it about forgiveness and forgiving. There are some in the religious aspect that I've seen who've called on God and to say, I forgive you because my God wants me to forgive you. And they would do it in the immediateness of their infliction, right? Some wait a while. I'm just wondering, for you, when did you come to a point of how much time had passed when you could in earnest say, I forgive you?
Man, I think it took me, I got incarcerated 2001, March 16th. I don't think I got to a space of true forgiveness and healing, or stages of it, like in 2012, I think was the first time that I met with Diddy in Paris. Flew from Israel to Paris to meet with him. And I tried to reconcile, but then the way he treated me thereafter, like I was in a place where if I didn't go to prison, I would have been a billionaire. And I would have continued to sell tens of millions of records and get into Hollywood and do my own clothing line and do my own restaurants and my own hotels and, be the mega entrepreneur that you see so many hip hop figures, the space that they exist in. So it's like, and then if I would have cooperated with the district attorney, Diddy would have went to jail. He would have did time. And he probably wouldn't be the billionaire that he is. So it's like, yeah, I did what I did because it was the right thing to do. But then you didn't try, you actually sent me to prison. So don't you think that there's some type of reparations? That's where my mind was at. I felt that he owed me his life. And certainly, if you're a billionaire, man, there's a debt that's owed there. And you can never give me back my time. But certainly, yeah, a couple $1 million would go a long way as far as reparatory justice is concerned.
Yeah.
Because you see all these people suing him now for $50 million and these tens of millions of dollars. And maybe that's something I should have done. But after the reconciliation, I definitely anticipated there would have been this flow of generosity to say, yeah, you know what, man, I really screwed up. Whatever I could do to make it right in perpetuity. But then the response was like, it was insulting. It was offensive. Yeah, it was offensive. It was like, it's like this is how you say thank you. You know what? I'm okay. I'm good.
Wow.
I'm good. I'm good.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. There was almost like a hubris of contempt. Like, I don't owe you anything.
Wow.
I'm telling you.
Wow.
That was literally said to me. I don't owe you anything. And I was like, you know what? And then that, but the problem with my response is that when I got to the other point of forgiveness, which was more in like 2019, I think like 2019. So that forgiveness was the ultimate forgiveness. And what you said is there was nothing that I needed from him.
Mm-hmm.
There was nothing that I wanted from him.
Mm-hmm.
So that was more empowering, and that was worth more than a couple $1 million. That was priceless.
That's your peace.
And that put me in a position to be able to go so far. Mm-hmm. And that's where I'm at now. And that's why I've been able to accomplish the things that I've accomplished, because the universe is the greatest accountant. So whatever I'm owed, the universe is going to make sure I get it manifold. Mm-hmm. And so that's why I was able to meet that person where they were, not for them, but for me. Mm-hmm. So it's like, yeah, you're right. You don't owe me anything. Mm-hmm. No problem. God bless you.
So you have been mentioning, I think part of this theme that we're establishing in this conversation is lessons and lessons learned. If you see me, I recline back in my chair in a minute, because what was revealed to me in that conversation was I was looking at forgiveness for you being assigned the blame of what occurred that night. But as you were talking, I was like, forgiveness comes from that power of choice that you had. And that choice was, do I cooperate? You go to prison. But by me not cooperating, I go to prison. I lose out on my trajectory of fame, financial freedom. Or you lose out on fame, fortune, and financial freedom. That choice that you chose to make. So it was almost forgiveness in 2012 was from two different tracks. It was one, forgiveness of being the scapegoat or being assigned the blame. And then the second was the choice of choosing to go into and do the time and forego what could have been your success and fortune and fame.
My choice, excuse me, my choice was a choice of my soul. So even at that point, it wasn't about him. It was about me and who I was and who I wanted to be. Mm-hmm. You aren't who you say you are until you're faced with difficult decisions to choose who you are. Mm-hmm. And that happens every day. Mm-hmm. So if I would have chosen to cooperate and to get my friend, my brother, even though he wasn't being a brother, he wasn't being a friend, but to get anyone, I just don't believe in getting people in trouble to get myself out of trouble, especially in that space where I was. I wasn't, I'm still not there. Honor and integrity comes with a price tag. So it's like, you don't tear people down to build yourself up. You don't sacrifice people to save yourself. And that's who I was then. And that's who I am now. And so everything that you see
But even in the face of knowing that you're in the right.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the district attorney wanted me to say he shot those people and that, he pulled out a gun, and I couldn't say that because I didn't see that. And I wasn't prepared to make that up. Mm-hmm. Right? And at that point, even if I did see that, I wasn't prepared, to get other people in trouble, to get myself out of trouble. Mm-hmm. That's just the way that I grew up. So it wasn't even about right or wrong. It's, listen, I didn't shoot anyone. I'm defending myself. I don't think I need to get into what anybody else was doing.
But Shyne, there's something incredible about that, because even you mentioned in the beginning of the interview, you said even when Diddy, your alleged brother, was still having witnesses testify against you.
Again, yeah, so some people might argue, well, he's doing it to me, I should do it to him, but, that's who he is. Mm-hmm. It's not who I am.
So from your perspective, you wanted to, no matter how the verdict was going to go and the outcome, you wanted to maintain the integrity of who you are.
Absolutely.
The constitution of you.
Absolutely.
Any regrets?
Absolutely not.
That's a powerful statement, to have no regrets on that one, to lean that strongly into a constitution. I don't know how many people would have been able to hold the line on that one. You see it happen.
And that's why I'm eminently qualified to be the next prime minister of Belize, because I have 400,000 souls, people that are depending on the decisions that I make. And so when I tell them that this is the manifesto, these are the policies that I'm going to implement as your prime minister along with my cabinet, then they can trust that that's exactly what I'm going to do, because I'm not going to forego my convictions. I'm not going to betray, who I am for anything. No special interests, no type of pressure. If I, at a tender age of 19, withstood, I think, the ultimate pressures that a human being could, I'm not going to, at the age of 46, after all I've been through, I'm not going to bend to any pressure. And so people can be confident that whatever I tell them I'm going to do before I get to the office of the prime minister, that's exactly what I'm going to do. So you see, that choice paid the entry price for where I'm at now, and the entry price for where I'm going, because I believe when we look at eternity, I don't want to get too far. I don't want to start to wax religion, talk about, esoteric things. But the mystery of life is exactly that. But one of the certain things that I have enshrined is that when we leave here, everything material remains here. But integrity, honor, passion, honesty, all of these things, those things are forever. That is eternity. So I would think that goes with you. So if you were a sleazebag, if you were a miser, if you were someone that you just did terrible things, that goes with you. And as I said, the universe is the ultimate accountant.
I couldn't agree with you more. I often say you're using universe in this context. I'm thinking about Diddy and I think about karma. And I always say that karma has no expiration date. Yeah. And you never know when karma is going to come back. As we close, I can talk to you all day. I'm thoroughly enjoying this conversation.
Thank you.
I'm curious, when the cases started coming up, what did that do to your soul?
And the only thing that triggered me, because initially, I'll be honest,
cases of Diddy started coming up.
Yeah, the only thing that triggered me was the Lil Rod lawsuit. Until that point, I was like, man, what's happening? Is this a conspiracy? Are they trying to tear down an African-American icon, you know, you don't want to see those things happen, because then an attack on one person could be an attack on a group of people. You know, attack on one of the most famous, powerful entertainers of hip hop could be an attack on all entertainers. It could be a domino effect. So you don't see that and say, yeah. So initially I was like, man, I hope this is not an attack on the culture. And so that, you'd want to see the person withstand, because, a defeat of that person could be a defeat of all of us. So that was my instinct. But then when the Lil Rod suit came out, and Lil Rod said that Diddy was bragging that he shot the club up, and he made Shyne take the fall. And I know that I took the fall. I know that he orchestrated for me to go to jail. That triggered me. That really triggered me. And then so it triggers you. Then Lil Rod made a bunch of other statements to, well, in his lawsuit, excuse me. And then the things that he said kept coming to fruition. So he said that there was a guy that worked with Diddy that had a fanny pack of narcotics, and so when they stopped Diddy at one of the, private plane hangars, this exact guy that Lil Rod said, transported the narcotics, had the narcotics, got arrested with it, etc. So it gave some credibility to what he was saying. Mm-hmm. And then, marry that with the fact that I know that I took the fall. Mm-hmm. And I know that there were other guns that were fired in the club that night. That really triggered me. Mm-hmm. So then I went from feeling empathy and sympathy to brought back those wounds, and it brought back like, man, yeah. And then when the video came out, it was like, man, I can't have anything to do with that. Then I remembered the monster that sent me to prison. Mm. I remember the monster that broke my mother's heart, and that, shattered my life into 1 trillion pieces.
Mm-hmm. Did it disrupt your peace? Did it give you...
Didn't disrupt my peace.
Did it give you closure?
Didn't disrupt my peace, and it didn't disrupt my peace. It just gave me perspective. Mm. It just gave me perspective that, because of course there was a part of me that was like, man, what's happening, and questioning it, mm-hmm. and wanting to be a defender again.
Isn't that interesting?
Right, wanting to be a defender again, like, nah, can't let that happen to one of us. But then it was like, God gave me perspective. The hand of God came down and said, yeah, snap out of it. Yeah. Like, this is the monster. You need to step back and allow the universe to discharge its duties. Yeah. This has nothing to do with you.
Nothing.
Yeah.
That's such a common occurrence with victims often, is that they often do want to protect those who has victimized them.
Yeah.
That is a very common occurrence.
Yeah.
Shyne, I just cannot thank you enough for this beautiful conversation, vulnerability and energy.
Thank me by visiting Belize.
I was just about to say, as we close, my audience is very political. How do you see Belize, if you become the prime minister, how do you see Belize moderating this time that we're in geopolitics? Because I hear your geopolitical game talking about Ukraine. My audience is well equipped for that. But what do you see the role of Belize playing in this new geopolitical climate?
Well,
if you were to be the prime minister,
Belize has always been a great friend of the United States, regardless of who the president is, regardless of who's in the House and who's in the Senate. I've done a deliberate job of that. In my travels here in the United States, for instance, I remember I was in South Carolina, mm-hmm. and South Carolina is a red state, mm-hmm. With a red House of Representatives in that state, and they honored me. Mm-hmm. Obviously, my friends are Democrats, but my friends are also Republicans, because I was invited by a Democratic member of the the state house in South Carolina, but it was a bipartisan embrace. The Speaker of the House was a Republican in South Carolina, and the majority is or are Republicans, and they honored me. You know, they gave me a declaration, a proclamation, and they celebrated, you know, my visit, and that's very important to me, to be a bridge, to be a connector. It doesn't mean that I support and subscribe to everyone's ideology. I have my principles, I have my policy agenda, but dialogue is important. Friendship is important. Agreeing to disagree is important. And so Belize will always be a safe haven for Americans, for whoever, because our friendship transcends the geopolitical space.
It's beautiful.
And you know, our ideals are bigger than who your president is and who the Speaker of your House is. And we continue to fight. You know, I always tell people, I'm not getting involved in who the President of the United States is. Whoever it is, I'm going to work with them. You know, I congratulated President Trump, and I also congratulated Vice President Harris. And the point of that position is that we bring people together. Whatever the fight is in America, people keep fighting. I fought for 23 years before I saw this magnificent victory that I have today. So if people aren't happy with the outcome, you keep fighting. I kept fighting. And so the documentary is timely.
It is.
Because, you know, you got to find your resilience. But as far as Belize and America is concerned, that relationship transcends whatever geopolitical space we're in. We've had 43 years of great bilateral relations, and hopefully we'll have 43 more into eternity.
Shyne, I can't thank you enough. Audience, please make sure you watch The Honorable Shyne on Hulu. Incredible story, incredible journey, and I can't wait to see you in Belize, Shyne.
Yes, all right.
Until next time, folks. Peace.